let's look at H-Town and the Astros. And last year, I would say a disappointment the way it ended by missing the postseason. 87 wins is respectable, but kind of fell flat there at the end. Their win total is actually down this year from that mark at 86.5, but to make the postseason is minus $1.15. We agree that Seattle is the class of this division. They are a plus 250 to win the AL West, 10-1 to win the pennant, 25-1 to win the World Series. Where are you in the Astros? Because it does feel like you can't stay young forever. You move on from Fran Valdez. He is gone in this rotation. Are there any signs that say they got better in the offseason? Because, Jensen, I don't see that.
They really have problems in their rotation. And even with the additions of Mike Burrows, 3-team trade, he comes over from Pittsburgh. He'll be their number 2 starter behind Hunter Brown. Tatsuya Imai, who is coming over from Japan and signed in January this year. Outside of that, you're still asking for health from a Christian Javier, from a Lance McCullers Jr. And even then, they've had that problem the last handful of seasons. Can they have enough healthy bodies to be able to fill out the rotation? Same can be said right out of the chute in the bullpen. Josh Hader going to open the year on the IL. That means you got to push everyone back. Fortunately, they have Bryan Abreu, one of the better setup men. He is now going to take over as the closer while Hader is on the road to recovery. But even still, there's some question marks in the Astros bullpen. Then we get to the biggest question mark, and that is, what do you expect from where this Astro lineup is? And remember, this is still a lineup that was about a little bit better than league average as far as average right at it for OPS and on base percentage, but they just could not score to save their life. Bottom third in runs scored last year. They really didn't do anything this offseason to be able to augment that lineup. And we're now a year or so removed from Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman departing too. So, Jose Altuve is going to be 36 this year. Carlos Correa, even though his age says 31 and a half, he feels like he's 36 or 37 with the back issues, the injury issues. Yordan Alvarez wasn't healthy much of last year. So you already have all those question marks, let alone this team somehow, some way, Dave, found themselves within 3 games of first place to finish the year and had every opportunity head-to-head. Remember, we had the head-to-head series against the Mariners with 2 weeks to go that they could have run them down and still won this division. So again, glass half empty. They didn't do anything really this offseason to help out. And in fact, they lose one of their key pieces in Framber Valdez. Glass half full. Even with all those issues last year, you were 1 series away from being able to win the division. I'm still on the skepticism part. I don't even know if they finish above 500, Dave. So it's an easy under for me on their win total of 86.5. And I don't really know if I want anything to do with a make the postseason price. I would even look at a miss the postseason price right now if you find one that is advantageous and palatable to your liking.
Let's stay with the glass half full part of this breakdown here, the Astros. So we mentioned Yordan Alvarez that I guess if you want to go glass half full, you say, well, that's the reason why we faded down the stretch because we didn't have our big guy in the middle of that lineup. So we hope for good health this year with him back. He's 25-1 to win MVP. Jeremy Pena is right there at 30-1. So if you have a healthy Alvarez with Pena, who's a little bit nicked up right now in his own right, but if you could count on those guys to be kind of the guys to really spearhead that offense, could that get you to, all right, they'll be able to generate enough runs with Pena and Alvarez. We hope for Altuve to be able to turn back the clock a little bit. Correa in the same boat as you mentioned. Is that enough offensively with those 2 guys on the middle end of the MVP board to say that they've got enough firepower to fight fire with fire?
Remember, Pena was in that MVP running before he had his own injury last year. And again, I know the Houston brass maybe breathed a sigh of relief that he was not going to be able this year to be part of the World Baseball Classic with the Dominican Republic. He had to deal with that fractured finger on his right ring finger. It sounds like he's not going to miss a lot of time, which is great because they need all the help they can get, and he'll slot right back in towards the top, if not at the top of that lineup. There's too much inconsistency with this group, and I always look towards what can I get or what do I have from not only the rotation immediately, but what do I have kind of behind that? And can I really look to 8, 9, 10? I don't even know if they can get to 6 deep with what they have in the minor leagues. I mean, you're looking at Spencer Getty, you're looking at Jason Alexander, as a couple of guys that maybe they could plug and play should injuries happen immediately. But this is also a division. Seattle improved over the offseason after what they did this last year. Texas improved this offseason. The Athletics improved. There is a lot more headway that the Astros are going to face than what they did from just a season ago.
I know that Scooble's still in Detroit, and barring a trade before the deadline here, he's going to be tough to run down here for Cy Young. But at 15-1 for Hunter Brown, is that a number that feels playable? Because, again, it felt like, at least through the majority of last year, he was a guy we were talking about in short order as the elite pitchers in the American League. Can we look at 15-1 for Hunter and say that feels like a playable number?
I think so. I think he's going to be the one guy that, and there were spurts last year where he was just absolutely dominant. Then there were a couple of hiccups there. But you're right. If you're looking to pivot off of, potentially Tarek Skubal, Garrett Crochet, I think that's a great way to go. I know that we're also looking at DeGrom, who I took in our VSiN MLB Futures draft. If I'm looking a little bit farther down the board, Framber Valdez, even in Detroit, is going to get some run. I know Steve Phillips really likes Dylan Cease. I wanted to highlight him because, remember, with what he'll have in not only being in the top 2 of that Toronto rotation with Kevin Gausman, but if Toronto does have early offense, then he's going to get bolstered by that. And a guy that has plenty of swing and miss capability, someone that is going to be in that narrative, right? He's going to be in the mainstream. People are going to talk about him now. You don't have to stay up late on the West Coast to watch him in San Diego. So I think that also, we talk about narratives all the time in MVP awards and Cy Young awards. So if there is a pivot off of the 2 big lefties in Scuba and Crochet, some value options, and I'm with you, Hunter Brown, even at 15-1, very much in play for the American League Cy Young Award.
So I think you and I are in unison that we think this Astros team could take a step back this year, at least in the AL West. So to that degree, when you look at the AL West and at plus 250, doesn't seem like a whole lot of value in that Astros number now. Where do we think if they slip, can we look at the Rangers and the Athletics as 2 teams they might be looking up at the end of the season? Is it a possibility they could fall back as far as 4th?
Boy, even just by Fangraphs, and this is fascinating to look at, the Astros are projected at 81-81, same record as the Rangers. I think 500 is optimistic for Houston. I really do. And they have the Athletics at 80-82, which hits your over, by the way, of over 76.5. I just think the Athletics got way too much firepower to not overwhelm some teams. And if the injury bug hits Houston again in the rotation early, even if, they have a couple of position guys still out, I don't think they can turn the trick again. They got lucky on a lot of spots last year. I don't think they can do it again.